All right.
Good evening. I'm Jonathan Brower. This is Dateline.
It's all yours. Take it away.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Everybody's got their easy chair and their beer in hand, I hope.
Yeah.
All the kids are asleep and the cats are in. Okay. So I'm Jonathan Brower. Steve Honeycutt was very kind to ask me to talk with you this evening. We did a little dry run a couple weeks ago. He asked me if I would wear clothes this time. I agreed, begrudgingly. But he said it would go a little more smoothly and we could focus on the woodwork and not this.
I'm glad you obeyed.
Me too. We had to pick up some new clothes for me, but it worked out. So I am a furniture maker in Rhode Island, and I've got a quick slideshow for you, and I'm in my shop downstairs of my house right now. And after the slideshow, even during you're perfectly welcome to ask questions. Anything you're interested in, you want some clarification on, or just a general Q&A, you can entertain at the end or during. If there's something going on with the slideshow or the scenes you want to ask about or you're inquiring, please speak up. I got no problem with that. And slideshow, a little shop tour, and some Q&A time, and I think a nice tight hour or so. It'll be funny, but obviously if the Q&A is rolling, we can. I got another 6-pack upstairs, so we'll just keep it going. Cool. So I'll talk a little bit more about myself here with a slideshow, and I will do screen share. And can everybody see my desktop now?
Yes.
Yep. Yes.
Okay.
Good picture of Sam.
That's one of my boys right there with our dog, looking at the front window, waiting for somebody to come or go. So that's one of my little helpers. And so this is me, the handsome man in the middle. And this is Steve, you said you found me through the Craftsy?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so this was a mug shot or a profile shot from that shoot with the in the Craftsy.com website. If some of you are familiar or not, it's an online course website. They offer classes, everything from cupcakes to cabinet making. They're kind of a catch-all course offering for the craft world. So cooking and woodworking, landscaping, arts. They're all there, and they do a wonderful job. And so this is a picture we took after I built the second piece here, which is a case piece, which I've got upstairs. And you can find finished shots. Ooh, I got to post those on my website. And I forgot to include one on the slideshow, so I apologize about that. But so in this picture, what's nice, it's here in the shop. We've got all the necessary elements for effective woodworking. You have lots of clamps. You have wood being turned into furniture, and you have a plaid shirt. Once you have these three elements, really the rest just kind of comes together. So with that, I am from Rhode Island. Now, you see my screenshot. Do you see yourselves in the little thumbnail view?
I do.
You do? Okay. How about, let me take you out. How about that? How's that? Better?
No, that didn't have any effect on us, John.
Okay.
They say who's talking?
I'm talking. Okay, here we go. So I'm from Rhode Island, the little state here, and in the U.S., and you guys are from down south where I was. I was in Southern Pines, which is south of Raleigh, about an hour. If you're all from North Carolina, you probably know that. I was there for about 4 years, and I'll talk a little more about that later in the slides. So from Rhode Island, I went to college in New York State up at Syracuse University, then got married, moved to North Carolina, then went to Maine for furniture school, and now I'm back in Rhode Island. Traveled quite a bit extensively around the country and a little bit outside the U.S., but mostly my furniture history has been in the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So I'm from Rhode Island, this wonderful little state with a beautiful coastline, mansions, bridges, and water. This is Newport. It's an aerial shot. It's actually a very tall tree out in the middle of the ocean. We also have Providence, a beautiful Renaissance town. This is one of the very inventive activities you see here. The waste management plan is to burn the trash in the middle of the river. It's and it just kind of fades away. Hire our gondola drivers and steerers from Italy. Once they're here, they can't leave. And it's a lovely state. So I went to college in Syracuse University, where I majored in fine arts and painting and studio arts. So this is what it looks like when you tour the beautiful campus in the summer. And then once you get there, it looks like this most of the time. So I made drawings and paintings, mostly self-portraits and figurative work that look like this, some abstract work look like this, more drawings and paintings, self-portraits that look like this. So I was there for 4 years as an undergrad. I started teaching my senior year as a teaching assistant. I stayed on the next 3 years. They asked me to be an instructor at the university. So I taught freshman foundation drawing, 2 sections of that. While I was teaching there, I spent a lot of time in the wood shop on the off days making myself furniture or work. I'm sorry, my dog is barking upstairs and there's a baby sleeping, so I'm just trying to put 2 and 2 together. Okay, I think it's okay. Spending a lot of time in the wood shop making things for myself as I was kind of a new adult in the world, and I had the time to start to kind of take care of the space around myself. So one of the guys in the wood shop, one of the grad students said, "Hey, there's a cabinet shop in town that could use an extra worker. You should get paid for this." I said, "Okay." So I started working for another sculpture major who had graduated many years before in a wood shop, and cut my teeth in this custom cabinet shop, making high-end kitchen cabinets and furniture and woodwork. I got to work with a prototype maker for Stickley Furniture. He was one of the cabinet makers that I worked alongside. Got to catch the furniture bug, moving from cabinetry into furniture and getting to walk in both worlds, really. So making kitchen cabinets out of plywood and sheet goods and getting to, being productive in that way, but also getting to slow down and design and learn how to implement some furniture joinery and design ideas and hand tool techniques, and have kind of both your cake and eat it too in that space. It was a really unique and as I've heard, a kind of a rare opportunity, and I was very fortunate to be part of it. So after doing that, naturally I grew a mustache. I reconnected with my now wife, Megan, obviously made for each other. Caught a ride out of town, got married, and started making furniture in North Carolina. So here is a shot. I have a few pictures. Most of what I did in North Carolina is capital improvement. So installed cabinetry and furniture and woodwork. So this was just one example of some of the custom stuff we do. So this is a quarter sawn red oak hutch for a client, and then painted entertainment center hutch. So if you're familiar, because you guys are uniquely from North Carolina, I worked in Southern Pines with a gentleman, Dave Ouellette. He's still running the shop. My wife and I decided we were ready for our next life change 4 years ago. So we decided that it was appropriate that we quit our jobs, travel across country, and leave North Carolina in the rearview mirror. So very sadly, I said goodbye to Dave. He's still my best friend. I talk to him on the regular. So he's still running the shop, 2-3 person shop, and we do custom install, custom design, custom cabinetry. So this is a library that we did, one of the larger works I'm proud of. But toward that end, I got the call of the furniture gods, and we decided that it was a good time for me to entertain going into business for myself, going to furniture school, which is what led me to Maine, back to the snow. So this is the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship up in Rockport, Maine. Some of you may be familiar with some of the woodworking programs around the country. This is started back in the early 90s by Peter Korn, who is a furniture maker and teacher and craftsperson and author, has written several books and founded the school after running and writing curriculum at Anderson Ranch and other programs around the country until finally founding his own school there in Rockport, Maine and Central Coast. So it's a lovely program, several Red Clapboard style buildings up there on their campus. A lovely program. I took the 12-week intensive class, which ran from early November, December, and January of 2011 to 2012. My class fell right in the middle of the 9-month comprehensive that they offer, which is the academic year, so not September through May. And that is for also individuals looking to get full-time submersion into furniture making as a profession or a serious endeavor, however they define it. So the school is really one of the premier craft schools in the world. There are several others, but this was the one that offered me what I needed at that time. So getting plugged into the furniture community, getting a more robust and kind of neck-deep submersion into furniture making, being surrounded by seasoned furniture makers. I had been self-taught in the furniture world with some kind of over-the-shoulder tutelage, had a lot of experience building cabinets and running and being part of a small business that was profitable and able to make a living at it. So I had those skills kind of in my backpack. So the 9-month seemed to me at the time, one, too expensive, I couldn't afford it, but also that I felt it was covering a lot of the bases I had already run on that track. So after doing the 12-week, I did what every through the 12-week class, they have 3 sections. The first 2 weeks are the bench project, where you are learning your machine room, getting familiar with your hand tools and joinery. So this is the bench project where you have dovetail joinery through mortise and tenon joinery and everything kind of in between. This project culminates those first 2 weeks of material milling, design, joinery execution, glue up finish, and overall execution of a whole piece. This is my piece in cherry after those 2 weeks. The second piece is your casework, where you are required to have 1 door and 1 drawer in the work. So this is my quarter-sign white oak cabinet with 2 drawers and a door that I fumed with ammonia, which is a process that probably many of you have heard of, maybe some of you have done, where you basically build a gas chamber and you fume the wood with ammonia gas, usually from an aqueous ammonia source, and you gas it for several hours and it gets darker, responding to the tannins, a chemical reaction with the tannins in the white oak being one of the higher content tannin woods out there. You get some nut woods and other oaks, oaks in general. Some don't have any at all, like maple. Others have higher contents like your white oak and butternut, a little bit in cherry, and they darken with prolonged exposure to ammonia gas. It's a very classic arts and crafts finish to darken the lumber. And the third project at the school is the bending, veneering, and laminations project. So this project here is I call it a glorified urn stand. Uncle Joe is in that box on top there with I have actually, Steve got to see it last time we were talking because I was in my office to begin the interview, and it was behind me. So it's a removable topped cube that's, I think it's elm burl. I was going back in my brain, Steve, to remember that I think it's elm burl veneer for the box atop there, and it's a pillowed surface. Each side is been veneered over a 3-dimensional spherical surface. So that was a jig setup where it had kind of an arched router jig, and that the blank for veneering the surface was rotated, so I got a spherical surface. I think the diameter of the sphere that it would be a part of was a 12-foot diameter sphere. I think it was a 6-foot radius that I worked with. Just enough to give it some pillow, but not so intense of a curve that it seemed cartoonish, and also that the burl would have a challenge forming over that severe of a turn. I've heard often people talk about bending veneer over a 3-dimensional surface or spherical is much like wrapping paper around an orange. You get a lot of crinkles. So choosing burl, which is kind of this chaotic grain direction and just a gentle enough of a curve, it gave me a working pillowed surface without sacrificing some of the veneer's integrity. And then the base is white oak that's got 2 kind of vertical legs, we'll call them, where these compound angled tapered bent laminations that are bending in 2 directions and tapering up as they meet under the box, and then a steam bent and laminated kind of shoe horse base that connects them as it wraps around the back. So that was the third project, and it was a lot of fun to design and execute. It was both sculptural and functional in a way. It appears at first glance, be more kind of artsy, as you might say, than furniture in the traditional sense of the piece. looking at it as furniture because it's in a slideshow furniture. But if you saw it on your own, you might just, I don't know, it's made of wood, but it's a sculpture. So, it's kind of fun if you can straddle the two aesthetic realms of function and form and one leading the other. So this was really just a piece that I was designing building from a design as opposed to designing something to be built and used with function as its main driver.
Jonathan, where the two
Yes.
legs cross, is that a
Yeah.
half lap joint?
Yes. Each
Okay.
leg's surface is slightly pillowed in radius as well. So that half lap joint took me a whole day, I think, to kind of line up, mark, execute, fit, and make it snug. So it's glued. Yeah, it's just glued a half lap as they cross over one another.
Wow.
That was a whole kind of plywood vertical panel jig to get those things kind of, plumb to the point that they were hitting the ground square, but also coming up to the bottom of the box. The box is level to the ground. So it was a lot of, looks simple and clean, but like anything else, there's a lot of jig and kind of messy sausage making in the back room.
Yep.
Getting to see the process is fun too. So naturally, after the school, we moved on to the next phase of our lives, and like any budding furniture maker or entrepreneur wanting to get onto the next stage of their life and make a name for themselves, and you've got the support of your wife, and you've got these tools and these ideas, the next step is to move into your mother-in-law's basement, right? Good. So that's what we did. We moved back to Rhode Island because Megan's mother had many rooms, and it was in Newport, so it's a great town to be in for a little while we kind of got our footing again. So I got back to Rhode Island with a couple commissions ready to go, which is great. So this is one commission in process in the basement of the house. So I've actually had 3 basement shops since leaving the wood school. The one I'm in now, the one I started there, my mother-in-law's basement in Newport, and the one intermittently between, which you'll see in a little bit. In each basement shop, I think I've gained about a half foot or a foot of headspace, increasing each time, which is, if nothing else, that's been the great. So the basement shops are nice because they're typically below grade. I don't know how many of you have a home shop space, a garage or a room or a barn or a basement, or have shared shop space. But any shop space is great space. It's better than no space. And I've been lucky enough to have a below grade space that's been able to keep relatively warm on its own merits. So having radiant heat in the house has kept this shop right now, I'm looking at the temperature, it says 61. Not heating the space with anything, a little space heater, just because I'm down here right now sitting, not moving around. Been able to maintain a pretty good temperature without having to heat the space independently. So this piece became this piece. It was one of my first commissions for a friend who is a furniture enthusiast and has now commissioning me to make several pieces. I've actually got, you'll see him shortly, some chunks of cherry that a neighbor of his had a cherry tree fall, and he cut it up and saved it because he knew they were valuable for some purpose in furniture making or woodworking. And so it's been a few years, they've dried out, and I'm going to make a box for the neighbor as a gift of his. And then for his wife, for their anniversary, a very elaborate jewelry box as a gift from that locally harvested cherry. So this is the first piece I've done for him, for his father-in-law as a gift. And then I built a couple nightstands, a couple other small works, other general kind of cabinetry and woodwork. But he's been great. So you got to find those. You got to find those people who love the furniture, love you, and love giving you money for what you do. It's not the story of it all. So while there in Newport, we had I had more commissions for families who are ready to venture into adulthood as far as ownership of furniture and their furnishings went. So really, if anybody in this crowd is making a profession of furniture making, I'd love to hear from you. And if you're thinking about moving in that direction or enhancing your income with it, or just a serious endeavor, but you want to take on commissions here and there or make pieces to sell, designing pieces and finding those people who to pay what it costs to make something, that's kind of that's the other end of the rainbow that you're looking for all this time. And much with any business really is trying to find your client base and trying to find the cost of things and price things so you're profitable, but you are competitive with the next guy up the road. So this is a piece I did for a couple. They were ready to move out to San Diego. They're in the Navy, so they've moved a lot, and they've lugged a lot of their furniture around. And one piece had just seen its last move, and they were ready to, make the investment of something that was going to last and survive moves. So we built this buffet together, and it's another Coruscant white oak, which I'm a fan of that wood, that cut of white oak. Fumed it, and this has got, they're at a budget, so we decided to do a plywood interior case and then adorned it with the hardwood exterior. So the back has got a hardwood panel, a three-panel back panel. The legs and side panels are all one unit that are adhered to the plywood case. Then the doors and drawers are all solid, but the drawers are plywood, and the interiors are adjustable shelves and Euro cup hinges and a solid wood top. So it's a way to bring a cost down for someone who doesn't need it thoroughly to be fine furniture, but still look and function as a fine furniture piece, which is a nice marriage, I find, for the average client. I've done higher end stuff where people want through and through fine furniture. So going back to this client, Dave, he is a furniture enthusiast, so he wants the hand-cut dovetails and the custom dimensions and scale models and the custom finishes. So they want it, they got to pay for it, they're going to get it, which is great. So diversifying what you offer and being flexible and being nice. That's the other thing I found to go far. So that's a lot of talk on these couple pieces. But
on that last piece, I had a question.
Yeah.
Is there is it just sitting on top of something, or is there something attached to the very bottom of the legs?
The piece that's up now?
Yeah.
On the very bottom, I have some white furniture casters. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think they're 1/4 inch because they were going to be moving around a lot, and they wanted to be able to slide things around rather than having the wood, which I usually chamfer for the bottom of legs, a good chamfer, so the wood doesn't pull up and splinter, but also gives a nice little shadow line. These casters were going to be able to survive the moves that they were going to need. So that's an offer I offer on chairs, and I've seen other people use it on different furniture of different types. So if I were installing this piece permanently to a wall, I wouldn't have them, but because it's going to get moved around a lot, we talked about it, and I convinced them that these casters can always get taken off. That's the other thing. They're just kind of, friction fit with a nail spike on the bottom.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Jonathan,
Yes.
could you talk a little bit about your philosophy of pricing?
Pricing. Okay. So, as it goes on a side interest, making something hobby, I think is kind of gets a bad rap. These are serious interests. You guys and men and women who are doing craft work, it's a calling of the heart. It's a calling of the soul, and it can be real pleasant and a satisfying pursuit when it doesn't have to be your livelihood. But at the same time, I really enjoy doing it as my livelihood. I've had the luxury of being in small shops and getting to see how a small shop and furniture studio runs well with making fine furniture and making it so people can have a paycheck and pay rent and keep the lights on. So pricing work is, it doesn't have, how to say this, depending on your circumstances, you can price something how you feel you need to be paid. Now, that can be taken a lot of ways. So the way I price stuff, that I've learned how to price it and that I price it now, is to break down what I, for lack of a better term, want to earn as a furniture maker. Taking in my costs and thinking, okay, so this I feel is an appropriate salary that I've earned before, something in the ballpark that I feel my skills are worth, that my degrees and my training and my experience can warrant. And I take that salary, and some of you may have done this before, where you break it down to a monthly or hourly rate. So if you were to be, so the way I get my shop rate, which is about, depending on what I'm doing, if I'm doing cabinetry, it's a certain rate. If I'm doing fine furniture, it's another. But it's generally in the $45 to $55 an hour. I use that as a crude starting tool to bid or price work. so I've got Excel spreadsheets that I've designed based on ones that I've seen and used before to price a job. So if somebody wants these office shells, I can price those very easily. They're very straightforward, mostly straight cuts, all MDF and poplar, paint grade, the install, everything I've done before, and I know how long it takes and how much it costs. So I can price it and say, here's what it costs for me to make this for you, and not so that like it's materials times 2 and that's the price, or materials and double that price and add that so you have 3 parts and that's the price. That's pretty crude. Something like this, it's pretty low intensity, but you go back to a piece like this, well, the plywood is a certain cost and all the boxes were made to a certain degree. The fuming was its own thing. The tapers and the frames and the everything that kind of goes into a unique piece like this. This piece here, this was a custom dye and finish on the curly maple. And so, you have to take into account some of those processes. Some of you've done before, some of you haven't. So really experience and then pricing it so that you're walking away with something. The cost of a piece, I'm getting very wordy. I'll talk a lot. Excuse me. Let me pare it down. Price it so that you can make a living at it. To dissect, to parse that out a little more is you got to price it in parts that you can swallow. So you don't eat a horse in one bite, you eat it one bite at a time. So to price a piece like this or this or this, I would break it down. Going to pick up materials, that's a 2-hour materials and handling. So that's 45. So if we're going to use a $45 an hour or just to round up to $50 an hour, 2 hours material and handling, 3 hours of sheet good breakdown, 2 hours of sanding, another hour of processing the hardwood lumber. Painting is going to be an 8-hour process between priming, sanding, and putting a top coat on. Delivery is an hour and a half. Install is going to be a day and a half, and I have a price for an install date that I round up to a single day install price. And so when you work from that, if you have to rent a truck, if you have to order materials, if you've worked on a job site of a general contractor, something called cost plus is where you're taking the cost and you're adding a percentage cost plus. That's what it costs for you to give it to a client. And then deciding what your profit margin should be. Should it be 50%? Should it be 5%? And figuring out what flexibility you have in offering a client some discount or deals or wiggle room when they want to say that's a little too much for me, or because I'm ordering 10 of these, can I get a wholesale or discounted rate? So that's a long answer. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah, that's very helpful.
Okay. Yeah, I would say the more you work at it, so you can go on Etsy and you can look up a cutting board and you can find a cutting board for $10. You could find a cutting board for $500. Which price is right? It's the great thing about something like Etsy is that it's an open market, and the customer can walk through the store and decide what good they want to buy, and if the price is right, they'll buy it. And then it's up to the seller to decide if the price was too low, too high, and if they have more to go on, if the competition is driving it down, or is every piece unique, so every price is unique. So it's similar. I don't get a lot of competition in my market right now. Like these are another. This is another pair of curio cabinets I did in the corner. So this is a cabinet that built and installed for this client to be corner cabinets. A way to defer some of the costs to the clients. She wanted to paint them, so I installed them unfinished, and I gave her some tips and helped her get set up to do the painting. And then I came back and I installed the glass on the doors, and helped her set up getting the hardware installed. So I did the install and trimmed in and tied in the moldings to the wainscot on the walls and the molding on the pillar here. So that's another way, the client was willing to accept a cheaper piece where they were going to do the finishing work. So I get to walk between, my cabinetry training and history, and then my fine furniture passion and other just general woodwork, from cutting boards to, repairs and other things that I find interesting or that I need to take because I got a low flow of work at the time. But I have rarely found taking on work that it hasn't led to more work or hasn't led to a good contact that is then been there later on that I can tap for either resources or more work or just a referral. So I'm also making fine furniture for some architects in New York, both of whom are kind of builders in another life, and they offer kind of a whole package to many of their clients. So they offer remodel or a redesign of a space, a home or an apartment or some structure, and they say, you know, this is the space and this is the furniture that is designed custom designed for your space. So I get to I like to think that they take care of the two of the three for me. They take care of the design, and they take care of the client, and all I have to do is build it and collect a check, which is nice. So this was my first piece for them, which is kind of a mid-century box on a little stand, and these are 8 drawers that have side-hung wood drawer slides. So it's all white oak. The exterior of the case has been initially dyed, and then seal coat, and then a second coat of a gel stain. So it's a 2-layer coloring, gives it a bit more depth, and it was also to match a stain that existed in the client's space already. And then it's got some nice custom brass boots on the bottom of the feet that were milled by a metal worker who I just recently installed a piece up in New Hampshire, and she had made the railings for a library ladder and the rail run for that ladder out of stainless steel. So getting to include other materials and getting to meet other makers in other fields is a real treat and a bonus professionally and personally. Getting to meet more people making it on their own as craft people and survive and making a beautiful product, but also getting to be cross-disciplinary as far as materials and clientele go. So getting to outsource a part to a metal worker or a stone person, it can be a lot of fun to see where someone else's work might blend with yours and enhance one another's work. And these are also great resources I have in my Rolodex from being in art school. So I got a metal worker friend out in San Diego. I got a design friend in Brooklyn. I've got another design friend in Boston who is selling quite a bit of his designs and products on Amazon right now. Printmakers, filmmakers, illustrators, you name it. If I got a question or I want to explore something, photographers, I can. Relying on your relationships is really a fun thing, an important thing. It's kind of how you get to where you get. Let's see this piece. So this was started. This piece was started in my shop when it was in my mother-in-law's basement. So snug space. Tearing down tools as I didn't need them and putting them up as I did. So putting the chops up to get things down to kind of general sizes and then breaking it back down. So this is a walk down basement. So anything I brought down had to come out the same door. So I'd make sure that the size of the pieces weren't too big in this shop. So breaking it down. So I'll walk you real quick through a little photo history of this piece here in parts. So coming in the rough white oak, getting it processed down to drawer parts and case parts, doing some dry fits, creating jigs. You know, as I'm building my shop, I'm building jigs newly for pieces. So I'll cut dovetails by hand or with some assistance from machines. But this piece, there were so many of them that creating some dovetail and pin jigs behooved the process because this was a piece, though fine furniture piece, was still a piece I needed to make a living at. So I needed to make a couple side steps and make sure that I was, meeting the timeline and the budget that I had set for this piece. So when I bid this piece, I bid it so that I was making these dovetails on the machine and having minimal hand tool contact. So creating a pin jig, stack of dovetailed, ready drawer parts, cleaning up the dovetail, just making sure everything's going to fit. You're giving it the once over at the bench. Pre-finishing the drawer parts, and there you can see my lathe just doing some turning the legs for that piece. That's actually a maple blank, but purchasing tools kind of as you need them for a job is always a good excuse to pick up another machine or a tool. And then in the middle of that project, I moved shops. I moved to my next shop up in Chepachet, in northwestern Rhode Island, and here's me doing a photo shoot of that piece in the new shop space. Kind of a nice little, almost a petite little dresser, but a real sweet thing. So the former shop. So then, starting to get the commissions through the architects, through friends, people who hear what I do and want something. The dining tables are a great a great project to take on. I love doing dining tables. It's a very it's one of your more used pieces in a home. You gather for meals, you gather for socialization. It's where you put your stuff. It's what you clean off to do other things, and so it's constantly being interacted with and used, and hopefully cherished. So this was a piece I did in some knotty and checked white oak for a client that I would in a year from then do more work for. So a repeat client. Another case piece for the architects. This time a dovetail piece instead of a butt joint square edge piece. This would be another white oak. This would get fumed, very dark, and large dovetails. So that was a fun task to cut and assemble a very large dovetailed case.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I butt in for a second? Can we go back to the table just for a moment?
Yep.
I was just curious how you put it together. Is it battens underneath or?
Carefully. No, yes. So can you see my cursor as it goes on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, so this is I call the end rail or apron. And then there's a long apron that goes along from these legs here. And so there's kind of a mimicked apron, two more inside. The legs and the short apron, the end aprons, those are permanently glued up.
Okay.
Those are glued up with a double tenon, hidden tenon and mortise and tenon joint. The long aprons are loose, and those are bed bolts attached to the legs. So they were in a duplex on the 4th floor of an apartment in Harlem, New York City. And so getting it in an elevator and getting it upstairs was part of the design challenge, as opposed to just kind of walking in the big wide doors of your farmhouse. So this had to go up an elevator that was kind of tiny and go upstairs and then get set up and travel in my minivan, of course. So
Neat.
yeah, so and then underside there are holes that have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 attachment lag screws that come up through each apron and cross rail in here to attach the top boards to the aprons and rails. Yeah. Does that answer your question? All right, moving on.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. And so then this is another piece for them where I've got another 3-bay cabinet on a little stand. So I've got the dovetails, and I'm transferring the dovetail marks to the pin boards or the top and bottom. And then I've got the top and bottom set up vertical, and I've got what is a bleached photograph. I apologize, but I've set up a chisel guide jig that after I roughed out with a router, I hogged out the material, the jigsaw and then a router to clean up the shoulder here of the pin board. I came back with this jig here, and I have a 7-degree, was the degree of the dovetails, a 7-degree angle cut here that guided my chisel across, that I could knock this with a chisel or a mallet and fine tune the fit and angle of the pin, so it would match the dovetail. So that was a fun case, and so then you end up with your dovetailed ends and your pin tops. And then this is the piece assembled and building and fitting the drawers to go inside. So this is a case where you'll see there's a door that will cover these 3 drawers here, drawer fronts that will get attached to these 4 drawers, and then the left bay will be a wine storage shelf and wine glass hangers. So this was a monster piece, and even more of a bear to carry and deliver. This is where you put your kids. This is actually my niece at the time. Then the piece got fumed, so I built a big old gas chamber for it and fumed it until it was super dark. And this was the piece installed or delivered and planted in Brooklyn. This is me going back to the piece after it was delivered and after they had filled it up with all their heavy booze bottles and wine bottles and stuffed the drawers full of everything, that I had to lift up the cabinet to install foot extensions because the floor was so unlevel that the extensions that the metal worker, you can see the leg here, it's faint, I apologize, I don't have better photographs of this, She had made threaded feet so that I could unthread them and level the piece, except the floor was so unlevel that the thread would show about 3/4 of an inch of the thread, so you'd have this nice thick leg and then this little skinny stretch of threading, and then the foot. So I had to install washers to kind of cover that threading. So I had to lift the cabinet, unthread the foot all the way, put the washers on, and then rethread it. I wish I brought my car jack. Instead, I used a walkway stone and some old ceiling fan blades to help lift that up in front of the housekeeper that day. She looked at me like an idiot. So that was a fun piece. Yeah. And then, the architects are great, and I get to make good furniture for them. But also building up my own client base. So these are 2 sticks of curly maple, 13-foot long curly maple boards. A friend of mine, through my wife, is a wood supplier for boat building. And so he goes around the world and takes down beautiful big trees for woodworking and boat building. So he's got a whole warehouse full of beautiful wood, just not even an hour from me, that I go over and pull stuff when I need it for projects and jobs. So these 2 sticks then became this piece and another piece, and I still got some of that wood lying around that I will eventually make other things. This was one of 4 pieces I did for a client up in Marblehead, north of Boston. It was then later jury selection in the alumni show at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship. So this is a second version of it. This is the second table. So the one is in the client's home is this one, and this is the one that's up in my upstairs hallway right now. And this was at the gallery at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship up in Maine, alongside other alumni from the school. Some of you may know other names in furniture world. Clark Kellogg is a furniture maker. This is one of his chairs right here. Anybody listen to the Fine Woodworking podcast or subscribe to the Fine Woodworking magazine?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. So the most recent interviewee was Clark Kellogg. I was listening to that today while I was driving around, and so this is one of his chairs. Nice guy. I haven't met him. We've kind of crossed paths at different points. He's down in Houston, Texas. I think he's my age. Nice guy. So his piece was in the show as well, along with many other works. Also for that client up in Marblehead, a little end table with a drawer, more made from that stick of curly maple. Corner table to go between 2 sofas out of cherry. This is a nice piece when you can. If you can make a furniture piece out of a single stick of wood, you'll get consistent color and aging and grain quality throughout a piece. So this cherry piece, like the maple here, and this piece here, are all made from a single stick of cherry or curly maple. So inherently, the piece will age consistently throughout all the parts, and that's something that you can separate your amateur work from your more fine furniture, more experienced work. Is that when you want to make that jump to the next level, is trying to be more selective and intentional about your grain direction, wood selection, and placement in a piece. So having wood grain that complements the direction of a component, or that is shown off, or is showing off some part of itself, and is helping the piece rather than kind of resisting it. So I showed off a wide board here with some cat's pawing or dimpling or little burl spots, but trying to have consistent grain and curl quality throughout the parts in this piece, and this one too. The 4th piece for them is a little demi-lune table as you come into the house with their mail. And another fun thing to do is when you have multiple jigs, like this piece is several jigs that consist of making this work, making 2 of them. So, I have one and they have one now. And you get to kind of have one go through the process as a prototype, and you get to kind of fine-tune some of the parts or the processes. More multiples, more hall tables that I would design and kind of build. So again, one of these I have for myself. Another one is a gift to my mother-in-law for the year that she put up with me or housed me, but also remodeled her kitchen. So I think we're even. Coffee table for my wood supplier friend Mike, out of walnut that he felled. So we've got this, again, walnut from one tree. So we've got a nice, lovely, consistent, rich, air-dried chocolate walnut throughout this piece. And we had some drawers designed into the piece so that he and his wife have their kind of his and her little Jack and Jill laptop drawers and their coffee table, which is nice. And so we used some of this malted curly maple that he had for the drawer interiors, and they are on undermount full extension drawer slides, so they have full access to that large drawer in that coffee table. So that was also a fun piece, getting to have the client give you some constraints, give you some obstructions, can always breed an unexpected and more magnificent piece I've found. More work for the architects. This is another kind of a full service client job they did where they've remodeled a home and then designed furniture to go in that home. So I, again, had the honor of making a dining table, 3 cabinets. And then the work I've done in New Hampshire recently was for their second house up there in Nelson, New Hampshire, where I've done the library ladder and some above kitchen soffit cabinets. So about 32 feet of sliding rail door cabinets and 9-foot library ladder, all of rift white oak. So this was a rift white oak table and about 10 feet long, 1.5 thick top, 42 inches wide, monster of a table, heavy as hell. So you can see the splayed legs here, kind of a custom profile. And so the architect wanted me to do a mock-up. And so this is the profile they had, kind of a soft radius face, and then it angled back and did a quick turn in the back. And then it tapered as it descended to the floor. And it also had a 4-degree canted apron around the sides. And so there were multiple angles. A simple looking table, but there's a lot of complexity kind of going into its construction in this piece. A lot of fun. So this is the piecing process.
Jonathan?
Yes.
What kind of finish did you have on that last table?
On the table?
Yeah.
So this piece, I talked with the client, he didn't want a lacquer finish, which is what I would traditionally use on like a dining table or a table surface, unless the client otherwise requests something else specifically. So this coffee table, we did an oil finish, and then I used a little bit of poly gel rub just to kind of fill in and give it just a little bit more surfacing. And so, but for this being a dining table, you didn't want a spray finish. You wanted an oil furniture finish. So I went with a kind of an oil varnish blend, built up oil coats, and then did kind of a rubbed out polyurethane couple of top coats.
Okay.
So there's a hand rubbed poly kind of nice dull furniture look to it.
Yeah, I like that. That's nice.
Yeah, filled the grain a little bit, but it didn't look like plastic, didn't look like lacquer on top. So there's, still got that kind of furniture look, but still kind of has a little bit of bulletproofing for a dining table. Yeah. And then this is just the shot of the blank to give you some scale, the horses and the tools. I outsourced the blank getting glued up by another shop because they had a big wide belt sander. And they could just kind of put this together and I'd have a blank ready to go. And I wasn't set up to do something this big that easily yet. So having them outsourcing just the glue up of the top. And then from there, I did the shaping and the finishing and the building of the base. And then also getting to work with, my wife is an Episcopal priest. That was why we were down in North Carolina. And so I'm also plugged into some of the church culture up here. And it's a whole other avenue of offering client base and design challenge and people interested in having you build wood, furniture, and objects. So this is a church in Rhode Island, St. David's. They're having a centennial celebration, and they wanted to dedicate a new baptismal font for that celebration. So this is the priest Peter, and this is a mock-up of one of the design iterations we went through for that baptismal font. This is just a dining bowl with a mock-up and him to kind of use it as scale to kind of see, do we want to make it a little taller, a little shorter? Do we like the way it sits in the space? So this was a group of parishioners that were put together to be in charge of designing and making the baptismal font happen. So we ultimately changed it a little bit, more kind of mock-up in the space. So using scale mock-up was helpful. And ultimately moved from these little kind of Gothic little horse heads and made them a little more streamlined. And so this is the second mock-up of what would then be the final design. And we had a glass artist, again, kind of blending artists and material worlds, make a custom glass vessel to hold the water in the baptism. And so this is the mock-up, and this is the finished piece with a custom Paschal candle stand to go with. So one of the women in the group wanted to make her own donation to the celebration, and she commissioned the candle stand to go along with the baptismal stand, to kind of go aesthetically to go with the stand. So it's all out of cherry, again out of a same tree. I was able to find a guy who had a bunch of cherry in his basement, all fell from the same tree, and so it's going to all again age out of the same color and same kind of grain look, which will be great. And it holds this custom glass vessel, this cherry wood. It was a real handsome piece, and it tried to fit this kind of mid-century modern church, kind of a clean, slick church space that really, kind of a clean, slick baptismal design was needed, I felt. And that's the priest, myself, and the glass artist there on the dedication day. So coming back to my cabinetry roots, more cabinetry. Back to the client that I did that big oak table for. You asked the question about the naughty and the checked white oak. This is their bedroom office that I did. So I did the cabinets, the shelving, and the Formica top. So again, hauling stuff up elevators and stairwells when the elevators break in New York. 4 stories walk up is always fun in August. I'm able to offer kind of a full stop shop of cabinetry and furniture. So I get to do this. I say, yeah, I can do that. And this is the other side of it, facing their bed with the entertainment side of it. So I get to do paint grade built-ins, and in their master bathroom, I got to do a teak, solid teak and teak veneer vanity and medicine cabinet and millwork for their walk-in shower, and bathroom bench there at a teak. So I get to offer it all. When they say, well, can you build a cabinet? I say, yes. Well, can you build a dining table? Yes. Well, can you build me a cutting board? Yes. They say, will you take my child? I said, no. So these were shots then of that house, of that dining table, after all the work was done, and the architectural photographer came in and took beautiful shots, making my stuff look even better, I felt. So there in the back here, I'll get a better shot, but this is the credenza, one of the 4 pieces I made for them. Beautiful cat. I did not make the cat. And this is up in Riverdale, looking out over the Hudson, up in the Bronx, north of downtown New York. The credenza here, all solid white oak. Again, designed by the architect, client of the architect. All I got to do is build and deliver. The first piece I did for them later in the year, I did the dining table and these 2 cabinets. And then there's a piece we just showed under the painting, and then this is the music cabinet, all kind of in the same vein of design, or in the same vein of design to fit the space designed by the architects. And then, I'm making other stuff to sell and move, kind of things I can turn out in a week or 2. And so I'm getting into making these mosaic cutting boards, just kind of a straightforward process of, cutting board, glue ups and rotations and angle cuts and reglues and reglues and reglues, and picking up some scrap wood out of the shop and making use of it. I'm sure we all have all those beautiful strips of wood that we can't get rid of, but you don't know what to do with. Make a cutting board. Just give it up to the cutting board gods, and give it some purpose in its life. So making these mosaic cutting boards out of some scrap wood that's lying around, hardwoods, has been a real treat. So some of them have been from scraps lying around. Others I've gone on my way to choose the wood. So this was for a client who wanted a larger carving board. So this has a little juice moat around the perimeter here. You see that? And then it's got, you can't tell here, but it's a little spillway that if you tilt it up, it's got a little bit of a 3/16 quarter-inch channel here that'll drip and spill out into a saucer or cup or sink, so you can kind of control the juices. So this is mahogany, the red, hard maple, the blonde, and then this kind of like gray, brown, black is walnut. So I found the 3 wood mosaic pattern is a nice combination, and it's about 18 by 20 footprint. And this is my current shop, which I'll give you kind of a little 360 view in a minute here. Currently, I've repositioned a lot of things. So all this kind of loose lumber here is now over on behind the camera person, and the bench has been turned around. I've reorganized some of the lights. I've added more insulation to the ceiling to help with some of the sound dampening from upstairs, because it turns out nobody really wants to hear the plane or the dust collector running at 9 p.m. or 9 a.m. or anywhere between. So that's the picture there, and that's the slideshow. Whoop. Have I lost everybody? Oh, we've got everybody here. Okay. Now, should I do a quick little 360 view of the shop? You guys want to see the shop space?
Sure.
All right, great. Okay, so behind me, we can picture a tool cabinet that I made at the wood school. Got my hand tools housing this, and it's a curly antigrade veneer panels, hard maple case. And then I've got my hand tools, which I use on a regular daily basis, a combination between machine work and hand tool work that I've found really works for me. So let's see, let's unplug everybody. And I think here, so there's where the loose lumber is now across this wall. So I've got a project going on right here, right now. This is for another church job, a different church job for a credence table, where the wine and bread are housed during the service. They've got a little corner space that they want to fit a custom credence table in. So another fun project. I'm actually going to go out tomorrow with a prototype scale model and fit in the space and make sure that it's what the client wants and it's going to fit. It's another kind of fun part of the custom work is getting to work with design and kind of have it evolve with the client. So loose lumber. Back over here, I've got my drills and some sample joints and parts and a grinding and sharpening station and the cabinet that I moved from across the shop that I've got glues and finishes in and other screws and fasteners. So this top drawer has just got my screw collection of the screws that I use most often and other furniture screws and fasteners that I use on the regular. And more just kind of glues and finishes and things that go with what I use on a daily basis or on a regular project basis. Mobile carts. I've got pneumatic nailers, which I use mostly in cabinetry or jig making. The washer and dryer help a lot with drying the wood out and keeping it clean. I've got my, all your standard tools, and I've really kind of kept my tool collection, machines especially, kind of at a hobby or entry-level scale of things. So 14-inch bandsaw, 13-inch benchtop planer, 6-inch joiner, 10-inch job site table saw, Bosch router table that fits on a cart, a benchtop drill press, which I actually got from a friend who was cleaning out a great uncle's estate. So that was a gift, and it's a really good drill press. Chop saw. So a lot of this comes from my cabinetry install days. So table saw and chop saw are, tools I would take out on an installation or job site, but function I've tuned up and I treat with such care that I can get fine furniture quality work out of them. So another thing I do is keep all my machines on mobile carts. So earlier today I was joining and planing, and I can bring machines out in space as I need them and push them back as I don't. So I have this floor space that I can do a 10-foot table in and still have all my machines and have the dog in the bed and not have to kind of squeeze around things or have only one thing going on at a time. And then you see this. This is my dust collector. Big old box. It's a Delta 5850, which is kind of your standard Delta horse and a half dust collector. What I've done is the impeller, the motor part, has been disconnected and housed in the sound box here. And I've got a 35-gallon drum down there. I'm trying to light and see the behind a little bit if it lights up. Anyway, I've got a light from behind. It's kind of a translucent barrel, so I can see as it fills up when it needs to be emptied. Now what I've done is I've taken a single-stage dust collector and turned it into a two-stage collector. So it fills the barrel, and it's got the I think it's Rockler makes the fittings here on the top of the barrel. On the top of the barrel that allow you to make a homemade two-stage collector. And then I've got the dust bag and filter on the other side of the wall that collect over there. So the dust, anything that comes out of the collector that isn't caught by, I have a 1 micron aftermarket dust bag installed on the collector. anything that isn't collected, it stays over there, and it separates the noise from the impeller and upstairs. So it's a further way of me streamlining the process. So I empty the barrel 5 or 6 times before I even have to empty the bag under the filter. Also dampens the sound from everybody else in the house. And then let's see. Here's another little shot of the space. So this, it's another shot of the space. It's downstairs of an old house. There's an old fireplace behind that wall. It's got a full walkout door wrapped around the side. So I've really customized the whole downstairs to do laundry and woodwork. But I've been very gracious, or I'm sorry, and I'm full of gratitude about how many opportunities I've had to have a shop in home so far, and have it work and have it be my profession that can augment our family income and kind of, take care of a baby, have a happy life, a happy wife, and all those things. So that's been good. Anybody have any questions? I'm talking a lot, so.
A quick question, Jonathan.
Yes.
So the furniture process from beginning, rough lumber all the way to the finished product, what stages do you like the least?
What stages do I like the least? Oh, one thing I didn't like today is when a machine is not, gets out of tune. So my joiner was out of tune a little bit today, and I had to kind of work around that, trying to get some edges ready for glue-ups. So my joiner is a little canted, so I wasn't getting a flat joint. I was getting a little bit of a bow to it. So I had to kind of compensate and then bring it over to the bench to use with hand tools and kind of clean it up. Which that frustration of when I've got a process already established, I know what I'm doing, I've done it before, and I have to take extra time in order to do an unplanned or unscheduled tune-up, or extra time tuning up something and doing it 3 times instead of once, or doing something 3 times as hard as just the regular level of difficulty. That's usually more I'm losing money right now because I have to do something more, or it has to be harder, or it takes longer than it should. And it can be, because it's me and my business, I'm the only one to blame about it. So I can't blame the elves that come in here at night and start loosening nuts and bolts, or the squirrels digging a nest in the dust collector, and so it's blowing out to the neighbor's yard or something. Yeah, the unexpected things but I got over them pretty quick. It's I would say the dealing with cold hands, and then taking on jobs that require more space than I have and trying to make it work. I'm at that point. I'm kind of at that point where I could consider a different space. I could consider renting a space that's bigger and taking that leap into the next level of professional commitment. But right now, because my wife is the breadwinner, I can kind of take this at a comfortable pace, making this my livelihood. So, putting stuff in the bank, paying myself a respectable wage, but also saving money for possibly building that shop or getting that next level of tools. I would love to get an 8 or 12-inch joiner. I would love to get a cabinet table saw. I would love to get the next level up of everything, because I know how to use it. And I would make it work well. But right now, this stuff is doing exactly what I need it to. And I really can't fit anything bigger in this shop at the moment. So it would be, it'd be trying to take a brontosaurus home instead of a cat, And we all know what brontosauruses need.
I had a question about when you design a piece.
Yes.
What is your typical process as far as do you sketch it out on paper? Do you use a computer program like SketchUp?
Yeah, so I kind of walk in all of those worlds and enjoy. So having my art background, I really like pencil and paper, pen and paper, brush and paper, and having as many creative avenues to explore. So this is just a little sketch page. So any scrap, this is some chairs I'm designing for a client for an outdoor dining set. So I built him a bench, and he wants that style in 4 chairs and a table. So I'm trying to use what I did for the bench and these tables. And so just some quick sketches for that. And you really, pencil and paper, you can't beat it because you can get ideas and shapes and relationships out so quickly, and then find out what's working and start to refine some overall forms, and then go in there and maybe push some details or proportions, and then work yourself up to proportional and scale drawings of perhaps what you want to present to the client, or what you want to take to a 3-dimensional prototype or scale model. So that was all just for that job. And, you do those in 20 minutes to an hour. Some more just prototype, me looking at pieces of wood around the shop and thinking, what can that become? It's hard to kind of design for no one or nothing. Just say, okay, I have that piece of wood. It's beautiful. I'm going to make a table out of it. But what do I want it to be? Do I want it to be traditional? Do I want it to be modern? Do I want to have a live edge? Do I want it combined wood types? Do I want exposed joinery? Do I want it to have metal? There's so many ways you can approach things that could be very almost thwarting or inhibiting in some ways. So I find it much easier if a client can give you parameters and say, I want a table but it's under $1,000. Say, okay, so we're not going to do this, this, and this, but I can use this, this, and this as far as making a piece and considering a cost. And then you say, well, I wanted to break it down for the wintertime because I want to bring it inside and store it. Okay, so that's why I said this piece, that client, I'm going to build them a trestle table because it can knock down and get stored kind of flat. And so that's kind of a design direction. And then we could say, he says, I want it to look like the bench, so it kind of goes with the other furniture out on the patio. I said, okay, so we'll use some tapers. We'll use this pillared surface idea. And after that, he was very trusting of my judgment as far as other aesthetic decisions go, so I could kind of have fun with it. So that's my design process in a nutshell. Is somebody saying I want a table, and saying, so what do you want? Do you want 6 people, 8 people, 1 person? What material do you want it out of? What do you like? Well, I like this style. I like, period furniture. I said, well, then get out of here. I don't do that, or I could say we can work around that, or we can figure out how to pull some of those elements into your work. Yeah. And I would say always have a pencil and piles of paper around. I find any scrap paper. So these are like printouts from a printer that just didn't make it into whatever they were doing. Paper's cheap, man. Just have a stack of paper and pencils and pens lying around. I usually have a stack in every room that I can just grab something if I've got an idea coming to me or I get inspired by something. I can jot down at least a shape or a form, or write out notes about something that I want to explore later.
And one more question is, how do you decide whether or not you need to make a prototype ahead of time or just dive into the project?
Obviously, if I've made something before and I know it works, I won't have to. I might have plans and jigs already set up to go for a piece, and so I can just kind of essentially put material through that process. A new piece, again, depending on if it's a client-based piece or a spec piece that I'm making for myself to see where I might go. It's a piece that I decide where it's going to go. I might just kind of build as I design and design as I build. So I built a few pieces like that where the finished product is just kind of going to happen when it's done. So I might have parts going on. So this was a sample leg for one of those cabinets in New York. And so I had to figure out what the angles are going to be. So I did this short leg kind of chopped, medical student example where you kind of cut the arm off and see what's going on. So this is me to figure out some of the geometry and some of the tapers and some of the angles of this kind of complex yet simple looking piece. So I needed to build a prototype at the very least of this joint and then kind of relate it to the rest of the piece. And then other pieces, yeah. So tomorrow I'm going to meet a client, and I've got the lumber kind of rough sized, but I need to go in with a scale. I'm going to use cardboard as a mock-up and maybe some thinner sheet good materials. I'm going to scale it exactly what we need it to be finished as, and make sure that it's going to fit the space. So that's when a mock-up is helpful. And I know some furniture makers that will have, they'll never get to this. They'll go right from this. They'll go right from this to a working scale model that they'll just start hashing out because they need to see it in real space, especially something like a chair where they're going to be sitting and interacting with it. It's a waste of time. I know I want slatted backs, and I know I want it to be a side chair, not a captain's chair. So, and I'm going to add this element. So let's just get some plywood and 2x4s and drywall screws and start banging it out. So I think it's like anything else. You learn how you learn. Figure out how you learn. Each of you, so like if you learn from videos, if you learn from reading, if you learn from doing, whatever process that you know that you learn best. But I would say don't stop there. Always try a couple new techniques and don't be afraid to fail, because failure is the best teacher, I think.
So, Jonathan, what's your favorite piece?
My favorite piece, whatever she's going to build next. That little lady right there.
There you go. I believe that's Hannah.
I'll use an old art school cop-out. My next piece is my favorite piece.
Yes.
Yeah. I do enjoy stuff that I design and build, but I also really enjoy the challenge of building someone else's design. Often because they come up with something that I would not have thought of, whether it's like, hey, I'm going to have the leg like this. I wouldn't have thought to make the leg kind of at this angle and then splay out a little bit. So I'm like, oh yeah, that's a great challenge. How do you build that? And so I had to kind of, mess up this routing and say, okay, I have to do a stop route here, and then I have to finish off by hand once the joint is together. And as it turns up here, I need to be a little more delicate with that. We'll have to cut that on the router, but I have to do that by hand. So, building someone else's design has always been a fun part. But I would say my next piece, because I'm always excited what's new, and that I haven't done before, is coming up next. Now, am I seeing the pool here? Does everybody build kind of on their own time, or building for profession, or building for years, days, minutes?
This is a hobbyist myself for probably 4 years, 5 years.
Great.
That's hobbyist.
Hobbyist. Berta? Oh, Berta's muted.
She's a hobbyist.
She's a hobbyist. Okay. Mike, about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a textile designer.
You are.
Yeah, I do this in this, little bit of spare time.
Nice. Jesse?
Yeah, I'm just a hobbyist also.
Is there an overall or an overwhelming aesthetic or kind of a style of furniture that's popular with the group, or is there everybody's kind of got their own tastes and flavors?
On the website, people do a little bit of everything.
Great. That's good.
Yeah, I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
I like a lot of things. In the last few years, I've been more and more interested in more modern styles, especially the mid-century style has sort of started coming back. So of course,
yeah.
But I've always liked that a little bit, just because of the clean, uncluttered look. Yeah,
it's no, you're absolutely right. It's making a bit of resurgence. You see kind of all over the design magazines right now. It's similar in its capacity to like Shaker Furniture and Arts and Crafts, is that it's a clean, it's straightforward. and it plays well with others. You can have a shaker piece and a modern piece in the same room, and they won't necessarily feel out of sync with one another. As long as you got some nice pattern on the carpet and the curtains. Yeah.
Well, they're both very minimalist, so yeah.
Yep. Yeah, kind of an unadorned, like this is a door and it's functioning as a door right now kind of thing. Yeah. Great. Any more questions? Or are we? It's
a quiet group tonight. This is unusual.
It's okay. Well, if I didn't wear clothes, would there be more people? Is that it? Is that okay?
No, I don't think so.
No.
It'd be less people.
That's right.
Just you and me, Steve. That's it. Well, the thing I didn't mention. So I taught at the Center for Furniture Craftsmanship this last summer. I was an instructor with the director, Peter Korn, during one of their basic woodworking classes, and I hope to return there for future teaching engagements. But I know in North Carolina, you guys have other schools and classes offered through universities and other towns and centers. You've got Pittsburgh, you've got the Woodwright kind of center in the state. You got Asheville, North Carolina. How many of you are in that area? But that's kind of a ground zero. Actually, yeah. I think it's this weekend. I think Clark Kellogg actually is going to be there at the Grove Wood Gallery behind the Grove Park Inn, doing a hand carving demo.
Wow.
This weekend for free. Yeah, you have to look him up on Instagram and other sources, and you'll see some posts. But he should be there. I think this weekend. I think it's this weekend he's going to be there. And then just keep making, exploring. Make a piece from design to finish, and I'll be curious. I'll check out the website and I'll post more. And I've got more to post on my website too. You can check out that and other links. But I appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to me yak for an hour.
Well, thanks for joining us. This has been very good.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
You guys, thank you much.